Blue Horse Theatre 2025.
Welcome everyone. Welcome back to the Blue Horse Theatre and part 4 in our series of Robert Ralston Jones's book. Fort Washington at Cincinnati. Presented in 1902.
The construction of the fort at Cincinnati made such progress that General Harmar, even before the close of September, began to plan the removal of headquarters to the new station. To an old friend, Colonel Francis Johnson, he wrote,
"I am shortly going to make my headquarters down opposite Licking River."
A few days later, in another letter, he says,
"Your humble servant is a bird of passage. Sometime the latter end of next month, or beginning of November, I shall move down the river, bag and baggage, leaving Ziegler's and Hart's companies at this post for the protection of our New England brethren, and shall fix up my headquarters opposite Licking River. I am in hourly expectation of the governor."
The governor was General St. Clair at the time. Footnote 25. Captain, later Major, David Ziegler was born in Heidelberg about 1748. He had probably seen more extended military service than any officer in the army of the frontier, having been in the Saxon army, as well as the armies of Frederick the Great and Russia. He served in the Continental Army from 1775 and was once captured by the British. In the year 1784, Ziegler was appointed captain in the Army of the United States and was promoted major in 1790, but resigned March 5, 1792. While stationed at Fort Harmar in 1789, he married Miss Sheffield of Marietta, his friend, Lieutenant Denny, acting as best man at the wedding. After his retirement from the army, Major Ziegler engaged in business in Cincinnati, where he died September 24th, 1811. He was the first president of the city council after Cincinnati had become incorporated in 1802. In 1804, he was the first United States Marshal for the District of Ohio, and in 1809, the surveyor of the port of Cincinnati. Major Ziegler was in command of Fort Harmar in the latter part of 1789, and after the St. Clair defeat was in command of Fort Washington during the latter part of December 1791, also January, and part of February 1792. General Harmar was, however, delayed at the Muskingum longer than he anticipated, for in November he wrote to General Mifflin as follows:
"It will afford me great happiness if you could steal 3 or 4 months from the Atlantic and spend them with me. I am now on the wing, expecting to move down the Ohio in a few days, and to fix headquarters opposite the mouth of Licking River, about 300 miles below this garrison, where I should be proud of being honored with your company. Venison, 2 or 3 inches deep cut of fat, turkeys at 1 pence per pound, buffalo in abundance, and catfish of 100 pounds weight, are stories that are by no means exaggerated. I am going to a country where there is a much greater plenty of game than is here at present."
General Harmar left the Muskingum on the 24th of December, and after a passage of 4 days arrived at the new fort opposite the mouth of Licking River, with a command embracing about 300 men. Now, for the first time, the fort received a name in the official reports. General Harmar, writing to the Secretary of War, says,
"On account of its superior excellence, I have thought proper to honor it with the name of Fort Washington."
Footnote 27. Letter of General Harmar to General Mifflin, November 9th, 1789. Footnote 28. See letter of General Harmar to General Knox, January 14th, 1790. Appendix 2.
And now, a character sketch of Paymaster Curies Beatty.
Lieutenant, later Major, Curies Beatty, Paymaster at Fort Washington. Curies Beatty of Pennsylvania was born October 9th, 1759. During the Revolution he served as lieutenant, from 1777 to the close of the war, and after this he was clerk in the War Department until commissioned a lieutenant in the United States Infantry Regiment in 1784, after having been promoted captain and major. He resigned from the army in the fall of 1792. For several years he was paymaster of the army, and to reach the various posts, travelled through the settlements of Virginia and Kentucky, bordering the Ohio River. His journal of this period is valuable and interesting. Major Beatty died at Princeton, New Jersey, February 23, 1823. General Harmar and his command carried with them the sincere regrets of the Marietta colony, an address of thanks for the zeal he had shown in protecting the settlement, and wishes for the general's continued welfare was forwarded to him at Fort Washington early in January 1790. This address was signed on behalf of the people of Marietta by a committee of prominent citizens. General Harmar was evidently pleased with the situation of his new post, and took measures to make his surroundings still more pleasant by the laying out of gardens for his own use, beyond the military reservation. He wrote to Judge Symes early in March, stating that he wished to secure an acre or so
near the garrison, on the east side of it, for the purpose of making a garden. I suppose, by applying to Mr. Ludlow, he will be able to stake off 3 or 4 lots accordingly. I wish you to give him the necessary directions.
Footnote 29. General Harmar to John Cleves Sims, March 7th, 1790.
This garden was located south of 3rd Street and east of Ludlow, and the location of a certain summer house thereon became an important point for determination. Some years later, when the situation of lots adjoining the garrison became a matter of litigation. Footnote 30. A case in the United States courts, later described herein. On the 2nd of January 1790, General Arthur St. Clair, who had been appointed governor of the Northwest Territory, arrived at Fort Washington, and after a brief stay, during which he organized the county of Hamilton and appointed judges, set out again for the Illinois country with an escort of 50 men under command of Lieutenant Doyle. Footnote 31. General Harmar's letter of January 14, 1790. See Appendix 2. Appendix 2 was read at the beginning of Episode 2 of this series. Also, Memorandum of Benjamin Van Cleve. See Appendix 16. Lieutenant, later Major, Thomas Doyle was from Pennsylvania and had served more than 4 years during the Revolutionary War, leaving the Continental Army at its final disbandment, November 3rd, 1783. Having been appointed a lieutenant in the 1st United States Infantry Regiment in 1784, he was promoted successively to be captain and major. He took part in various engagements and was honorably discharged, November 1st, 1796. He died February the 15th, 1805. Major Doyle was a perfectly fearless man, as was shown on more than one occasion. He once travelled for miles in the Indian country, accompanied only by a guide, visiting the Indian villages and urging the chiefs to attend the treaty making at Fort Finney in 1786. At the time of St. Clair's campaign, having been temporarily deserted by his command, Doyle served as a volunteer with the artillery. Major Doyle in 1794 rebuilt the old French Fort Massac near Metropolis, Illinois. Appendix 16. Appendix 16 is on page 100. Arrival of Governor St. Clair. At Cincinnati, on the 3rd of January 1790, a party of settlers landed at Cincinnati, among whom was Benjamin Van Cleve, one of the founders of Dayton, Ohio. He states that on the preceding day, January 2nd, General St. Clair, the governor, had arrived. Having issued a proclamation erecting the county of Hamilton, he appointed judges and justices of the peace for the county. The building of Fort Washington was still in progress, but it was already occupied by 4 companies of infantry commanded respectively by Strong, Pratt, Kersey, and Kingsbury, and by Ford's company of artillery. Memorandum, Benjamin Van Cleve, American Pioneer. Volume 2, page 148.
My friends, let's take a closer look at Van Cleve's memoranda in John S. Williams' publication, The American Pioneer. From 1843, Volume 2, Issue 4. Here is a letter to the editor John S. Williams. From John W. Van Cleve about his fathers, Benjamin. Journal of first-hand eyewitness accounts of the events happening at and around Fort Washington. Van Cleve's memoranda. Dayton, January, 1843. To Mr. John S. Williams.
Sir, the object of the Pioneer is one in which I feel much interest, and I believe the plan on which it is conducted to be the very best for effecting its purpose. It makes it a treasury of facts, continually becoming more rich by new contributions, which will soon afford a most valuable stock of authentic materials for the history of this country. There can be no other plan which will so well, and so certainly ensure the correction of errors, and reconcile the various current accounts of the same event. I hope your enterprise may prosper. I have in my possession materials for some contributions, which it will give me pleasure to place at your command. My father, Benjamin Van Cleve, who was one of the earliest residents of this place, became a citizen of Cincinnati on the 3rd of January 1790. One day after the arrival of General St. Clair and the establishment of civil government in that place. His home was there, until his removal to Dayton in the spring of 1797. During the principal part of his life, he kept regular memoranda of the events which transpired around him. I will occasionally copy some portions of his journal, which you may use if you think them of sufficient value. Signed, John W. Van Cleve.
Extracts from the memoranda of Benjamin Van Cleve, Cincinnati at the beginning of 1790.
We landed at Losantiville opposite the mouth of Licking River on the 3rd day of January 1790. 2 small hewed log houses had been erected and several cabins. General Harmar was employed in building Fort Washington and commanded Strong's, Pratt's, Kersey's, and Kingsbury's companies of infantry and Ford's artillery. A few days after this, Governor St. Clair appointed officers, civil and military, for the Miami country. His proclamation erecting the county of Hamilton bears date January the 2nd, 1790, on the day of his arrival. Mr. Tappan, who came down with us and who remained only a short time, and William McMillan, Esquire, were appointed justices of the peace for this town, of which the governor altered the name from Losantiville to Cincinnati.
Today, Hamilton County, Ohio, is not nearly as large as it was, as it has broken up into new counties in Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana. Next, we take a look at the work of John Tholking of the Hamilton County Genealogical Society, revised December 21st, 2013, compiled by John Tholking at Early Hamilton Co-Boundaries by Tholking. 2013 to 1221.pdf, as well as the Newberry at newberry.org, Northwest Territory and Simi's Purchase. In July 1787, Congress enacted the Northwest Ordinance establishing the Northwest Territory, and later that year, Congress sold John Cleves Simi's over 250,000 acres between the Miami rivers. In November 1788, Major Benjamin Stites led the first group of permanent settlers down the Ohio to establish Columbia at the mouth of the Little Miami River, near the site of the present-day Lunken Airport. Hamilton County. On July 9, 1788, General Arthur St. Clair, the President of Congress, arrived at Marietta to become the governor of the new Northwest Territory, which extended west to the Mississippi and north to the Great Lakes. He established the first county in the territory, Washington County, which covered the eastern half of the area which later became Ohio. On Jan 2, 1790, Governor St. Clair moved his headquarters west to Fort Washington at Losantiville. He immediately established and organized Hamilton County as the second county, declared the new village to be its county seat, and renamed the town Cincinnati. Hamilton County was named by Judge Sims in honor of his friend Alexander Hamilton, then the first Secretary of the Treasury, 1789 to 1795. Initially, from 1790 to 1792, Hamilton County covered the area between the Miami rivers. Quote, beginning with the mouth of the Little Miami, thence down the Ohio River to the mouth of the Big Miami, and up said stream to the Standing Stone Forks, thence in a straight line due east to the Little Miami, then down that stream to the place of the beginning. Unquote. In 1792, Hamilton County's boundaries were extended east to the Scioto River and north to the Great Lakes. Hamilton County changed its borders 10 times over the first 18 years. Here are the 11 versions. The original version and the 10 changes of the first 18 years. Hamilton County boundary changes. 1790, January 2nd. Hamilton County organized. 1792, February 11th. Boundary extended east to Scioto River and north to the Great Lakes. 1796, August 15th. Diminished by formation of Wayne County, Northwest Territory. 1797, July 10th. Diminished by formation of Adams County. 1798, June 22nd. Part of Knox County, Northwest Territory added. 1798, August 20th. Diminished by formation of Ross County. 1798, September 1st. Part attached to Adams County. 1800, December 6th. Diminished by formation of Clermont County. 1802, April 30th. Diminished by Enabling Act of Ohio. 1803, May 1st. Diminished by formation of Warren, Butler, Montgomery and Greene counties. 1808, January 20th. Part attached to Butler County.
Lovely. Now let us go back to page 23. In a letter to Mr. Jonathan Williams of Philadelphia, General Harmar recalls the pleasant hours spent with the former in Paris, where the The general had gone in 1784 as the official messenger of Congress to convey the news of the peace with Great Britain. He says,
"Here we are delightfully situated on the most beautiful river in the world, La Belle Rivière, opposite the Licking in Kentucky. You'll wonder at this when you call to mind the handsome meanders of the Seine at the foot of your old quarters. Society, unless what the military affords, is entirely out of the question. Buffalo, venison, turkeys, and fish of an enormous size, when the season arrives, we have in great abundance. If ever misfortune, the slippery jade, should direct your course to the westward, it will give me great pleasure to regale you with some of our dainties. You shall have a hearty soldierly welcome."
Footnote 32. Letter dated from Fort Washington, February 25th, 1790.
You have been watching Fort Washington at Cincinnati, Part 3 by Robert Ralston Jones. Thank you. Thank you for watching. This has been Blue Horse Theatre. See you next time.
Blue Horse Theatre 2025